so nothing had prepared me for the horrors in my path. I was born a lone wolf, and it wasn't that I couldn't go out anymore, or that social occasions nearly sent me into apoplexy with all the overpowering input, or that now being one-handed, I was denied every activity which made my heart sore. I was left only with my thoughts and my brain damaged to such a degree that there weren't many of those. I had never just sat for so much time. Well, I'd sat in fields, forests, on beaches, but this was different. This was a complete lack of choice. All my life I'd had endless choice. So now it was all taken away from me. So to get on with things was my only option. Things to be got on with. Breathing, eating, walking when I could, stumbling when I couldn't walk, and generally acclimatizing myself to this new reality. I could only liken it to being abducted by aliens, dumped on a foreign planet where nothing worked the same as on Earth, and there was no manual as to how to operate in this really strange place. The first thing I realised was that I'd have to get a grip on physics. I had only one job now, not to fall. I wasn't going back to hospital. Of this I was psychotically certain. Born with a core of titanium, I had never wavered from anything I had set out to do. My determination had kept me strong and was especially needed now. But at this early stage, I was unsure exactly what the strength was going to be needed for. Boy, have I found out since. Okay, I looked around me when I got home from hospital. All I could see was damage, pain, and a life with no colour. And I went, what a strange place to be. After the life I'd had being a musician and live gigging everywhere and writing and carrying on like an idiot. So I could only see the damage and the pain. And I didn't know what the strength was going to be needed for. But it was what it was. Only acceptance was required. There it was, the heart of the matter. I hadn't been used to acceptance. Let's just say it hadn't been an overused word in my previous life. I'd always known that I could change most things about me and my life if I wanted to. I thank God for finally giving me acceptance. Over the weeks, I gradually and organically came to a place where, having slowly got used to the physical disabilities and the reality of my position, I found a more peaceful state built on that acceptance and calm. Time had done the first part of the job. I'd never experienced the luxury of time, having always spun my way through the vortex of my life, so active, so clever, so interminably busy. This is a strange place to be, I now thought. Time is all I have. For the first time, I could only sit and think. That's all I had. Gradually, the state of being gave birth to new ideas. Having always been a bit of an existential being and a searcher, I now had all the time in the world to really grapple with the large matters of being human. Who gets this opportunity, I thought? I'm the luckiest person in the world. And I actually thought that. I felt the luckiest person in the world, even though I could only sit and do nothing. But that was the first time in my life I'd had that opportunity. So that was a real gift. There it was, I had a purposeful way forward. My legs can't walk, but my mind can. It can go anywhere. And so began the most important journey of my life. And I wasn't going to squander this opportunity as I'd squandered so many before. It was a huge gift from God. And I took it as such and accepted it. So the first step, metaphorically speaking, because I couldn't take a single step, so it could only be metaphorically, was to, sorry, lost my place, sorry, brain injury. Wonder how long I can use that for.
been using it 5 years. So.
Oh, thank you. Okay, we'll go with 5. I'm up to 2. Oh, good. Okay, so I had been a project manager in a previous life. And here in front of me was the project of a lifetime. I had no staff for this one, but somehow I knew it was a solitary road anyway. It wasn't so much about the physical damage, but more the mental strength required to get past the physical damage and into my future. First of all, as similar as all the days now were, each was an opportunity to make some progress by walking more, not getting frustrated, and finding new pathways, both for my legs and my brain. I had talked to a friend who had had a stroke a few years ago. So she was also a stroke victim. How I hated that word. I'd never been a victim before, and I wasn't about to be one now. So I looked around for all the words, but the noun escaped me. But I needed a positive way of describing what I now was. Oh wait, no I didn't. I was still me after all, just a new version. I quickly decided to forego the noun and just get on with it. So life went inexorably on with me cracking my own metaphorical whip, flailing it over my crippled body. How strange it was to have the same brain and body I'd always had, but for everything to be so completely and utterly different. The brain signals were all hopelessly messed up. I'd feel hungry, and then I'd go, oh, I'm not. I feel sick. Oh no, I don't. So I'd often go and get the Justin bowl, just in case. The Justin bowl was an empty ice cream container that I wore on my head at times like this, just in case I was going to be sick. I had to carry it on my head because I needed my one working arm for punting the wheelchair. To add insult to injury, my preferred ice cream brand was Tip Top, which had bright blue containers. Oh, so pretty! Not. Sorry, just lost my way. So not only having one usable arm, another large part of who I was had been swept away. My friends soon became sick and tired of me being sick and tired, but they hung in there anyway. Oops. I'd always adored fashion with its colour and cut, and I had used it to display my personality on the outside like a flag of personal freedom. As a young person, I had been told many times I was too intense, I was too overthinking, I was too colourful, I was too loud, I felt too much and too strongly, and was generally wrong, and I just didn't fit. I wondered if anyone would now say I was too disabled and too slow. Well, fashion was one way to celebrate my individuality and thumb my nose at the world and all the criticism. When my sister very kindly came to stay and to help me with my new life, I was horrified when I heard the words, "Right, let's clean out your wardrobe." It felt like my heart was being ripped out. Of course, good sense prevailed, as there were few items that I could now get on or off on my own, with only one arm. I learned very quickly during the process that if I said, "Oh, I love that," the item would not be thrown on the op shop pile. So you can imagine I employed that very often. But the progress was quite cathartic in the end. As I made my way slowly towards the path I'd never travelled, the business of finding a new me and a new life was well underway. It was the juxtaposition that really got to me between my previous life and what was now possible, with all the frustrations and frustrations. Because my brain, limitations and frustrations. The learning to walk thing was comparatively easy, although I'm not there yet. After all, it was just a matter of continuously and repetitively putting one forward and then the other. All the time with the internal chatter. I'm a great internal chatterer. So, copy the good foot. No, the foot has to be flat. The foot has to be straight or you'll tip over. It was all so exhausting. This is on every single footstep for 2 years. Now I thank God for being a detail person. What before had mostly been a curse was now a complete blessing. I never wanted to cry over spilt milk or any other liquid, except perhaps wine. I'd learned the rules for the first time in my life and realised I'd need to pay attention and follow them. There was no way out of this, there was only through. Time spent was non-negotiable, and I couldn't make it up as I went along, as I was wont to do in my previous life. Never having batted away a challenge before, this now became my personal crusade, albeit without dragons or swords, and only my unfailing sense of humour and rod of titanium as weapons against the devil's work. So far I was winning, but I knew there was a long road ahead. I visited my sister last Christmas. A good friend had driven me down. I had felt trepidation at the thought of the journey and the visit, but not wanting to spend Christmas on my own was a stronger feeling. So I put my big pants on, both metaphorical and literal. And I knew I had to go for the sake of my spirit. This was the 18-month mark, so I didn't quite know what to expect. The journey was okay. Although the cars and scenery whizzing by overloaded my poor damaged brain, but not too much, as it turns out. I realised I just might be able to do this. That was the first glimmer of hope. On the road trip I realised I'd forgotten how beautiful the outside world was, and took everything I saw in like water to a parched person. I could only liken it to being blind and suddenly being able to see. I imagined it would be a similar feeling. How wondrous! How colourful! I thought with joy in my heart. Ah, there it was, gratitude. That was a brand new feeling for me, and a huge gift from God. The gifts seem to just keep on coming, like people at a big family Christmas, or perhaps I've just never noticed the joys around me before. Everything had come too easy for me, and was then taken for granted. Stupid Leona. I have quite often have said this through this process, because of the previous life, and now having the space in my head to find the real joy in life and all the things that are so special to us. It is just incredible, actually. So let me just jump for a bit. Oh, there it is. I want to read the bit about the food. My table manners have absolutely gone to the dogs since I've only had one. So, my sister lives in a small beachside community, and her husband's two sisters and their families live on two sides of them. After sitting at home on my own for over a year, this was a somewhat overpowering dynamic, and I was a bit scared that I wouldn't be able to handle it. And I had never been scared in my life, and now I just seem to be scared of so many things. It was a strange feeling. I didn't understand it. Anyway, all these millions of people only visited in dribs and drabs, so it was entirely doable, and I could handle it. So I felt like I was becoming part of the human race again, which was actually a nice feeling, and it was nice to have gratitude about it too. That was the most important thing. Of course, I didn't have to cook for myself there, and there was Christmas cake, which is my favourite food. I couldn't do salad anymore. I ended up wearing most of it, festooned in my hair and prettily decorating my clothes. And the Christmas mince pies were challenging, with all the little raisins like little sheep droppings spread at my feet. But this visit wasn't about food, do's and don'ts, more of a spiritual trip to join the world again. So I made a big mess and tried not to worry. After all, I was with family, and they understood. Ah, there it was. They understood and would forgive. Another new thing for me, to understand that. I discovered the power of forgiveness, if only from other people, not being quite ready to forgive myself yet for all the transgressions of my previous life. That perhaps was another journey for another time. But if I hadn't tried, I wouldn't have found out that I could go out into the world again and I'd still be sitting at home alone. So now that I had tried, it taught me I was ready to venture to the outside world again, but in small stages. After all, my brain hadn't completely healed. And evidently I've got, well, guessing, but it's quite interesting actually. I'm going to digress from this for a little bit, if that's all right. I know it hasn't been edited, but it's just a very interesting thing to watch the brain that was completely washed clean and everything coming back again. It's like being a newborn child. And it was quite wondrous to see it from the inside out. And I still watch it, but it's coming back more, so it's getting a bit more noise inside there now. I might have to look it back a bit, because I don't want all the noise I used to have. Life is so much better without all of that. So I'll just go into the mental strength thing, because when I arrived home from hospital, I looked around and I thought, I can't do anything. So began the endless days of my recovery. I realised very early on that this would be one of the hardest battles yet in my life. The physical problems were the least of it. They just required rest, focus, repetition and time. The real challenge was holding on to the mental strength to get me through the existential crisis that was now in front of me. Never before had I not known who I was. My soul and spirit had, after all, got me through all the trials of my life, and now I no longer knew who I was or who I would be. What a strange place to be, I thought of it. Having always been a musician, constantly organising and performing live gigs, creating set lists, organising electronic gear, learning or writing new songs, I now found I could only play the piano with one hand, couldn't carry any gear, well I didn't mind that. I couldn't even open a music stand. Well, that's not surprising really, as this piece of equipment was the most notoriously difficult to operate at the best of times. It contained no fewer than 20 swivelling rivets which swiveled in all directions, and everything was painted matte black and mostly used in low light settings. What could possibly go wrong here? My musical partner in the duo I was in told the story of how he'd done gigs for 5 years before someone told him the music stand was set up completely wrong and wasn't fit for purpose. So I had taken over the job of putting up the stands at every live gig we did to ensure they remained vertical and wouldn't collapse into a tangled heap halfway through the most complicated song in the repertoire, therefore transforming the duo into pariahs of the music industry and rendering the musicians rank amateurs and the butt of many jokes. So my thoughts rambled on, cascading down the new rocks of my limitations and tumbling around the debris that was now strewn in my path. Playing live music was not an option yet, I realised sadly, and this became one of the grieving points of my new life. What can I do? Was the bone I constantly gnawed at, spitting out the bone shards as best I could along the way. Well, I can still record music. I have a little studio at home, so where I record music. So my singing voice hadn't returned yet, so I started composing instrumentals, and as I found out later, the genre was ambient orchestral. Who knew? Well, I hadn't up to now. Again, that not paying attention thing. So another gift from God, a whole new musical genre to play with. Thank you, God, and thank you all for listening and helping me regain a little bit of my self-respect. I appreciate it.